Hey there, this is Atul from Team K29 Academy, and welcome to this day 3 of a 12 days video series on AWS Cloud for absolute beginners, where we're talking everything right from beginners to storage, compute, networking, databases, DevOps, and including certification, as well as the resume, interview, and job preparation. So today we are on day storage, where we are going to cover three services, core storage services, which is S3, simple storage services, EBS block storage, and EFS file storage. But just before that, we have already covered overview of cloud as well as AWS. On day two, we covered security, which is identity and access management, users, groups, roles, and other security services, which I've covered, which is day two. We will look at this users, groups, roles, policies, WAF, Shield, and key management service. So straight, let's go and continue from this block, the storage as well, from a storage. So what this storage is, any data that you want to store persistently, that's basically storage. And there are three categories of storage. This is not just AWS, it's in generic. You have three type of storage. One is you have the object storage, and this is where you have any flat files like your video files or GIF or emails or data file, or no, yeah, not data file, I would say the backup and restore files. That's basically stored as an object in an object storage. So when you go to Google Drive where you put it, it's basically storage, object storage, or in yeah. Then you have a block storage, and block storage is where data is written in a block by block format. Typically, if you have a virtual machine or a databases, behind that underlying storage that you connect is a block storage. And then you have a file storage, which is you might have heard of Shamba server, or you might have seen of, if you're coming from an enterprise IT background, you might have seen a file system which is attached as a NFS, network file share, or a Samba share across multiple machines, the same file system. That's a file storage service. Now, implementation of these on AWS has different services. So with respect to object storage, you have two services mainly: S3, simple storage service, which is your AWS buckets also we call. And then you have a Glacier, which is a cold tier, which is any data that you want to retain for slightly longer. That's Glacier, which we'll look in a minute. The block storage, I've already mentioned, we'll look at them one by one. So from an object, you have a S3 and Glacier. From block, you have a EBS, Elastic Block Storage Service. And then any storage that you attach comes with EC2, which we'll see. Compute, which is nothing but virtual machine. We are going to cover, I think, tomorrow. And then EFS, which is a file service, which is shared file system, which I'll explain you in a minute. So what is that simple storage service S3? Now, typically, let me go and create or show it to you on the console. This is on console. You go to S3 and you create nothing but buckets, which is nothing but collection on which you can store your data. So I can create multiple buckets, and in that I can store my maybe even a static file like my website, or it could be my video file, this video which I'm creating, maybe that file, PDFs, documents, everything. In fact, our website, our PDFs, all our videos are hosted on S3 buckets. A lot of our static content coming from S3 buckets as well. So I've already created a bucket. The only thing is that bucket name, which I think I'm going a little bit deeper. So let's continue. Let me come back and give you basics first, and then if time permits, I will come back and go deeper into these things. Otherwise, I can go on and on this. So because I need to limit this video in 15 minutes, if time permits, I'll go deeper and show it to you a little bit hands-on as well. So if you look at now here, S3, it's a bucket. In that bucket, I can go and upload a new file. For example, I have some files on YAML files, etc. here. Otherwise, I can go and upload any data from my from this laptop, and anyone can access it, provided I give them permissions to access that file. So that's S buckets. Now, S3 has different like durability, or how long they're available, or what are the availability time. There are different tiers on that. There's a standard tier, intelligent tier, Glacier, and other Glacier Deep Archive. Those will dictate the pricing and also how quickly they are recovered, and other things, which is your service level agreements and recovery objective on those availability objectives as well, which are based on that you define. So when I'm creating these buckets and data inside that bucket, I'll defining these different tiers that will help in reducing the cost as well. Now within that, I think Glacier, let's look at from a Glacier point of view if I have it documented here. Otherwise, I'll explain you. No. So Glacier is, think of it as a cold storage. Think, let's suppose you have some files that you know you're not going to need them maybe 2 years, 3 years down the line. They are only required if a audit comes. A lot of banking customers have a requirement they need to store the data at least for 7 years. From a company point of view, we need to maintain our financial documents for at least 7 years. And so for that kind of a data, I'm going to put it in Glacier, which my costing will be low. And then if I need, I can retrieve them, but the retrieval time might be slightly longer than normal putting into S3 bucket and so on. So out of these, object storage is the cheapest. Then comes a block storage, and then file storage is the most expensive ones as well from a pricing point of view. So that's my block storage. Sorry, that's my object storage, my mistake, sorry. Then I have a block storage, and block storage is something which I'm going to attach. So I'm going to, let's see, let me go back onto the account. So I'm going to return to the cloud account here. So I'm on a EC2, which we're going to cover on tomorrow. So this is nothing but my virtual machine. And if I scroll down here, these volumes that you see here, this is nothing but a block volumes. These are actually the block storage, elastic block store that you see. So the volumes, when I'm creating a virtual machine, it automatically creates a underlying operating disk on which the operating system is installed. And I can then add more volumes if required as well on, I see here. Similarly, I can take snapshots of those. I can take a point in time copy of that snapshot and I can do lifecycle management, which means I can ask them to retire or delete or modify. There's a lifecycle management as well that's available here. Then I can also go and do some more activities later, which I'm going to cover a little bit later if time permits. So block storage. Now, if you see, there's a solid state disk, there's a hard disk drive that you can attach to these virtual machines. So I think on day 2, when I'm going to create a virtual machine, or sorry, not day 2, day 4, we are going to create a virtual machine. That time I'm going to show you how to create and attach a block storage as well. Then you have a file storage service, EFS. So assume you have a NFS file share or a file system that you can attach to the multiple machines using something called as mount target. And then EFS is built for that. So let's suppose some applications have a requirement that they want to see the same data, or then you have a requirement where you want to attach the same file system across different machines, and that is where your EFS will come into a handy Elastic File Service. Now, if you want to go read more, you can click on these links in the email, and how to connect or how to access this. If you're watching this video somewhere on YouTube or some other place, you can go to this URL, which is I think k20academy.com/AWS01 is the URL. And there you can enter your name and email address to get hold of this entire email that I'm talking about. So in that, there'll be some more documentation about what are the storage options. So this document will talk about all the storage options like EBS, S3, FS, EFS file service, and FSX for on a Windows file system as well. Then you have to go read more about S3. You'll be looking at this more on this S3, or maybe just Google K20 Academy AWS S3 and you'll be able to come onto this page as well. Similarly, file system EFS, you click on this link more to know more about EFS, which is my Elastic File Service EFS as well. Then you can even create your EFS. So this is the steps given here, how to create an EFS. I'll go and search for EFS, create it, and then later I'm going to attach this EFS to a EC2 instance or a machine that I can create. Then similarly, if I go further down, block storage I've already mentioned, and then you have a data transfer service. Now, typically when you're doing migrations, you need to migrate huge amount of data, or maybe you want to transition from bring the data across different cloud, or maybe from cloud to on-premise, and that is where these data transfer service will come in handy, which is one example is Snowball. And you also have a Snowmobile. Snowball is a kind of a device which can contain huge amount of data, and you want to migrate like your applications. You take a backup, put it into Snowball, and give it to AWS, ship it, and the AWS team or Amazon team, they will upload that into your bucket and data center, which is quicker and easy for you. So that's Snowball. Then you also have a storage gateway. So typically this is where, let's suppose you have the data on S3 or Glacier snapshots, EBS snapshots, and you want to access them from on-premise devices. And that is where a gateway will come into picture, as name suggests. So on-premise, you have a machine that you want to use. From that machine, you want to use huge amount of data storage, or you want to do a backup and backup to cloud from the on-premise machine, backup to cloud. And that is where you have these storage gateways. There are different type of categories of that storage gateway you can create and attach. And that's where storage gateway will come into handy. Now, as I said, my objective is to bring that video under 15 minutes. And this is just a brief overview about the three different type of storage services in AWS, which is block storage, file storage, and object storage, which is S3 bucket. If you want to do some additional labs or know what you can do, you can go to this URL k2academy.com/AWS05. And then here I have different categories. You can perform these hands-on labs if you want to. So go under, on day one, we covered this basic services. So maybe perform labs related to this basic services, basic labs. Or day two, we covered identity and access management. You can perform some labs related to identity and access management. Today we are doing storage service, which is these storage. So what you can do is you can perform some of these labs like create S3 bucket, upload file, and you can host even your website, a static website as well. Now, one tip on when you're creating the buckets, the name should be unique, and you and I can't have the same name. So make sure that you put some random numbers or name and your number or some date or something which will make the bucket unique, otherwise it'll fail. Other thing you can do is you can create a EFS, which is a file system, and then attach to your EC2 machines as well. So this is where I'm creating some additional file system and attaching them later to machines as well. Or you can create some volumes, elastic block volumes, or EBS, which is a block storage, and take a snapshots, and then maybe attach it to the other virtual machines as well. So these are some of the labs you can do, hands-on lab, to understand these things a little bit better. So task for you, as we do always on day one and day two. Today, you need to create a simple S3 bucket and upload the sample file and access on the internet. And how are you going to do it? Let me see this URL. In the email, you will get that link. So what you're going to do is you'll create a bucket. So you follow the guide, this instruction. I hope you already have an account. Go and create a bucket. And once you've created a bucket, this was the name I was talking about. Make sure you create it as a unique name. You can create in any region. You enable the access control list, which will be for security reasons. And then you upload a file using here, any file, and then maybe any PNG or any file you have. And then you can access that page or that file using from the browser, anywhere from the browser. Now, as same thing you can do, you can put you can further enhance it by adding a DNS, which is a Route 53, which we'll see a little bit later. So I hope that makes sense. This is, yeah. So let me know if you have any further questions on about any of these services, block storage, file storage, or simple storage. Any doubts, any questions? Let me know. Also give them the feedback in terms of how we have done so far and what additional things you want. Am I going too fast? Am I going slow? Am I going okay? Thumbs up, any other thing, any further detail, any questions, anything that you tried hitting, let me know that as well. And we got one comment on one of the videos where you were trying to create a free account. So I'll cover that maybe tomorrow because I'm just conscious of the time. But leave that under comment. I'll reply under the comment as well. With that, this is Atul, and I'll see you tomorrow with networking part, the compute part, where we're looking at creating a virtual machines. We'll look at other services on compute as well. I'll see you tomorrow.